Alright, what's up? It's Richie here with Statifying Football. This is day 2 for the bowl games. Bowl games for the 2022 season. This is for Saturday, December 17th. There's 6 bowl games going on that day. Lots of fun all day long. Beginning in the morning at 11 a.m. with the Fenway Bowl. It's kind of a weird thing because the Fenway Bowl was supposed to have started in 2020, but because of COVID, it got canceled, and then it was going to be played last year, and one of the teams pretty much got wiped out with COVID again, and that got canceled. This will actually be the first time the Fenway Bowl will get played. It's between the Cincinnati Bearcats and the Louisville Cardinals. Cincinnati went 9-3 and Louisville Cardinals went 7-5. Louisville, they had Malik Cunningham going in. He's a really good quarterback, but he's skipping the bowl game to go to the draft. Brock Dillman is the backup quarterback, has played some this year and should be okay. Their top receiver, Tyler Hudson, he's also skipping the bowl game, which basically leads them to not a whole lot offensively. They got a linebacker, Yasir Abdullah, has 8 sacks. Cornerback Jarvis Brownlee, 11 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. They're averaging 27 points per game and giving up just over 20 points per game, which makes them 20th in the nation in scoring defense. They're second nationally with 43 sacks and tied for 5th nationally with 15 interceptions. Cincinnati, and also, weirdly enough, the Louisville coach, Scott Satterfield, is going to coach at Cincinnati next year. The Cincinnati coach already left to go to Wisconsin, so this bowl game will actually be between 2 interim head coaches. Cincinnati, their starting quarterback, Ben Bryant, will be out. He was hurt. Evan Prater played a little bit this year, passed for 340 total, ran for 196 and a touchdown. They have a good running back in Charles McClellan, 834 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns rushing. Tyler Scott, their top receiver, 54 catches, 899 yards, 9 touchdowns. Ivan Pace leads their team with 119 tackles and 8 sacks. Safety Jaquan Shepard has 10 pass breakups. They average 31 points per game offensively. They give up 20.3 points per game. They're 22nd in the nation in scoring defense. 34 sacks on the season. I think this could be a pretty close game. It may be somewhat low scoring because of the skill position players, especially for Louisville, being out. They do have a really tough, strong defensive line. I think the slight edge will go to Cincinnati. Both defenses are really good, but the offense, the running back and the top receivers are playing for Cincinnati as of this recording. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I checked off Louisville, but I'm actually going to go with Cincinnati to get a win there. All right, now we go to the New Mexico Bowl. No, that's on later, so let's skip that. We're going to go to the Las Vegas Bowl between the Florida Gators and the Oregon State Beavers. Florida's coming in at 6-6. Oregon State is 9-3 and ranked 14th in the country. Florida, their quarterback Anthony Richardson, he's skipping the bowl, going to the draft. Their backup quarterback Jalen Kidna, he went to jail. So now they're down to the 3rd-string Ohio State transfer Jack Miller. It'll be the first time we see him this season. But their top 2 running backs in Trevor Etienne and Montrell Johnson will be there. Montrell Johnson ran for 827 yards and 10 touchdowns. They average 31.8 points per game, but they're giving up just under 29 points per game defensively. Oregon State did well this season, mostly on the ground. Their quarterback play was shoddy. They went through 3 or 4 different quarterbacks. So that's why I'm not even going to really mention their quarterback play. The quarterback play for both teams will be about even, not very good, but they do have a really good freshman running back in David Martinez. He's run for 970 yards and 7 touchdowns. He should reach 1,000 rushing yards. Their defensive back, Alex Austin, 9 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. And Rajon Wright, 9 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. And Ryan Cooper, 9 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. They have a really good secondary. All 4 of their secondary guys have at least 2 interceptions, each of them. They average 32 points a game. They only give up 21 points a game. They have a really strong defense. I'm not sure what to expect out of the Gators here. We haven't seen really what Miller can do. Oregon State's a good running team. The Gators are not very good on defense, especially on 3rd down defense. I'm a Gator fan. I want the Gators to win, but I think that Oregon State will actually be the winners of the game. All right, then the next bowl after that will be the LA Bowl. This should be a pretty good one. Washington State Cougars, 7-5. facing off against the Fresno State Bulldogs at 9-4, coming out of the Mountain West Conference. In fact, Fresno won the Mountain West Conference. They have a really good quarterback in Jacob Hayner. He passed for 2,616 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He missed, I think, 4 games in the middle of the season. And since he's been back, I think they've won all of their games. Last year, he had a monster year with like 4 to 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. Then they have a good running back in Jordan Mims, ran for 1,161 and 16 rushing touchdowns. And a good receiver in Jalen Moreno-Cropper with 80 receptions for 1,051 yards and 5 touchdowns. Defensively, their defensive end, David Perales, one of the best in the country with 10.5 sacks, which is 5th. Defensive back, LJ Early, 10 pass breakups and an interception. And Cam Lockridge, 9 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, which is one of the top in the nation. The leader in the nation has 7, so the 5 is right up there. They average just under 31 points per game and only giving up 20.5 points per game, which is good for 25th nationally in scoring defense. Going over to Washington State, Cam Ward had a really nice year transferring in from Incarnate Word from the FCS division. Passed for 3,094 yards, 23 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, plus ran for 5 touchdowns. Linebacker Daniel Henley had 106 tackles. Defensive back Chow Smith-Wade, 8 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. They average 27.8 points per game and give up only 22 points per game. So both teams are very comparable. Both don't give up a lot of points. They can score pretty decently. I'm going to go give the edge to Fresno State here. They're on a roll. Their quarterback, I think, is really, really good and could be... I mean, both quarterbacks are good, but Jake Hayner, I think he could be possibly an NFL starter one day. So I'm going to go Fresno State in what should be a pretty entertaining, possibly high-scoring game, but at least a close game it should be. All right, then the next one is the Lending Tree Bowl between the Rice Owls and the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Rice Owls, the only team with a losing record. They got in at 5-7 because there, quote, weren't enough eligible teams. They totally shafted James Madison. I can go on about that later, but Rice does get in. We're not sure who their quarterback is going to be. TJ McMahon, he was injured. He passed for 2,102 yards, 18 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Ran for 3 rushing touchdowns. If he doesn't play, AJ Padgett should play. Passed for 339, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. They have a pretty good wide receiver in Bradley Rosner, 41 receptions, 834 yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns. They only average 25 points a game. They give up 33 points a game in this. But they're facing Southern Miss, who doesn't have a very good offense themselves, but they do have a pretty stout defense, like a nationally ranked kind of team. We'll start with their quarterback situation. It's a question mark. The last years, they've had no quarterback play. They've gone through 4, 5, 6 different quarterbacks, all because they're really bad. In fact, their running back, Frank Gore Jr., which is Frank Gore's son, he's been playing quarterback some, and they just have been doing the Wildcat, and he's even thrown like a couple touchdowns, I think, this year. But it goes through Frank Gore. He ran for 1,053 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. Despite the no quarterback play, they still have a pretty good receiver in Jason Brownlee, who could possibly get to 1,000 yards. He's got 52 catches, 819 yards, and 7 touchdowns. They have a good safety in Jay Stanley, 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions on the season. They only average 24 points per game, but they only give up 23.5 points per game. They're tied for 5th nationally with 39 sacks. Their 16 interceptions are tied for 4th nationally, and their 102 tackle for losses is 3rd nationally. So I'm actually going to give Southern Miss the edge here. It'll probably be a pretty low scoring game, but I think Southern Miss will have just enough offense to get by in and should have the defense to stop Rice. All right, then we got the New Mexico Bowl. The New Mexico Bowl looks like it could be one of the better games of the bowl season, if not the day. Start with BYU in 75. The only question mark is Jaron Hall. He may or may not play. He's had a really good season, though. Passed for 3,171, 31 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and ran for 346 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. They average 31.9 points per game and give up 30 points per game, which is not very good, facing an SMU team that also went 7-5, but they're 13th nationally and 38.4 points per game but they themselves give up 34 points per game. So both average well over 30 points. Both give up over 30 points per game. So this could be a shootout. You have SMU's quarterback Tanner Mordecai passed for 3,306, 31 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Rashee Rice, he was leading the nation for a lot of the season with 96 receptions, 1,355 receiving yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns. This should be a pretty fun game to watch. Like I said, the over-under is 64, which is high. They expect this to be a shootout kind of game. I'm going to give the SMU Mustangs the benefit of the doubt, and that they probably will score on the last drive, maybe with no time left, and win what could be a really great game. All right, and the nightcap, the final game of the day for Saturday is North Texas Mean Green and the Boise State Broncos. North Texas coming in at 7-6. They lost the CUSA championship game. Boise State, they kind of turned around their season. The first 4 games, they were not very good. They fired their offensive coordinator. Their starting quarterback entered the transfer portal, and then from that game on, the backup quarterback freshman Taylor Green came in, and they've averaged well over 30 points a game, and basically won out until they lost in the Mountain West championship game there. We got Boise State, like I said, Taylor Green passed for 1,905, 13 touchdowns, 6 picks, but ran for 467 yards and 8 touchdowns. George Halani ran for 1,133 and 10 touchdowns. They averaged 29 points per game, but like I said, the first 4 games they were awful on offense. So really, it's probably closer to over 30. But they are one of the best defenses in the country, 10th nationally, giving up 18.5 points per game, and 6th nationally in yards per game, giving up 281.3 points per game. Whereas North Texas, they fired their coach, Seth Luttrell. Eric Morris is coming in, the offensive coordinator for Washington State. Osanani, though, he had a statistically a good season. He set a North Texas record. He had 32 touchdown passes, 13 interceptions, passed for 3,309. Their linebacker, Katie Davis, had 132 tackles. Their Ridge Tejada, one of the top defensive backs in the country, 15 pass breakups, 3 interceptions, 18 passes defense, which I think was tied for second or third nationally. Deshaun Gaddy had 11 pass breakups. They have a pretty good offense. They average just under 34 points per game at 33.9, but they do give up 31.5 points per game. I'm not sure. This has the potential to be a shootout, but Boise State is still a good team. A really good defense coming on strong with a pretty good offense. They could go possibly undefeated next season, and I think Boise State ends the season on a high note with their 10th win of the season. So those are my bowl previews for the Saturday bowl games. Check back. I'm going to have all the rest of the bowl games coming up over the next couple of weeks. Peace.